Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good day to everybody listening in here to my Sci-Fi DevCon session here on AI meets Sci-Fi, understanding deepfakes and AI impersonation. This is my session and submission to the Sci-Fi DevCon event for 2025. Thank you, Brian Gorman, for having me be involved in this event again. I believe this is the fourth, maybe fifth year of Sci-Fi DevCon, which I've participated with sessions every year. So I want to thank Brian Gorman for that, my friend and fellow Microsoft MVP. So let's jump into the session here. Again, this is the session talking about deepfakes and understanding AI impersonation and how that kind of the fictional sci-fi universe and our real worlds are kind of colliding as we get more and more reliant and start using generative AI more and more. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dwayne Natwick. I am the CEO. Hold on, let me just move here a little bit for viewing ease. I am the CEO and owner of Captain Hyperscaler. We are a training organization. We do training for Osaka, Accolade, AI certs, also a Microsoft certified trainer, CompTIA trainer as well. So do a lot of training around AI, cloud, and cybersecurity. Also was previously global cloud security lead for Atos or Eviden. And I am a Microsoft MVP for security. I've also worked with and work with a lot of training organizations to do Microsoft training as well. You can follow me on the social media links provided on this slide. Best one to follow me on would be LinkedIn. That's the one I am probably most active on now. A company website for training opportunities and events that we have going on as well. You can also email me at the email address here if you're interested in any training for your organization. So what are we going to talk about in this session? We're going to start by defining deepfakes. What are deepfakes and what is the evolution of deepfakes and what are the parallels to the from sci-fi that kind of inspire what we're seeing here today. We're going to also discuss some AI driven threats and look at it from a sci-fi perspective. We're then going to look at those deepfake threats. How do we mitigate them, and then what are some of the future predictions and strategies that we can partake into and apply to our business as we continue to evolve within generative AI and all of our chat GPTs and Geminis and co-pilots around creating content and working around content. So when we talk about deepfakes, what we're talking about is that synthetic media that's created with artificial intelligence, realistic images, sounds, videos of individuals. So understanding the basics around that is very critical to navigating, our digital landscape and understanding what consequences might be, what there might be, what might be around in terms of not understanding when something's real or something's not. So we need to understand deepfakes, and deepfakes utilize that machine learning techniques and generative adversarial networks or GANs. These create highly convincing replications of of individuals, of organizations. And with the onset of OpenAI, of Gemini, of of co-pilots, and and Bedrock. These are all rapidly evolving technologies, and becoming harder and harder and more challenging to understand what is fake and what's real. So we need to really be diligent as organizations and as people and citizens to these deep fakes. Think about years and years ago when phishing came into light. We when started getting emails with these links about you got a raise, or hey, you just won the lottery, or there's an Arabian prince or a doctor that came into riches that wants to share it with you. um, these phishing emails, um, if you think about when we first started getting them, and what we get, and how much they've evolved over the past 20-30 years since we started using email and started using the internet on a day-to-day basis. It's the same thing with generative AI and artificial intelligence technology. Phishing emails were very basic text messages, texted format before. A lot of misspellings, a lot of grammatical errors, and things of that nature. Sometimes even addressed you with the wrong name. Things like that. Now they're very very intricate, very targeted. They have the company logos in them. They look very professional. It's no different than looking at artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. Artificial intelligence, think the historical aspect of artificial intelligence, and really the term being deemed around the 1950s, 1960s, and it's been in science fiction for just about that long. And all of these aspects of robots coming back from the past, and trying to influence the future, and all of these things and all of these aspects have been in science fiction movies for a long time. These aspects of holographic images, and in Star Trek, and Star Wars, and all of these other science fiction movies. They've been there. They and if you go back and even look at how they implemented or showed those aspects in those movies, you could tell that the technology wasn't there even back then. But it has evolved, and it's getting more and more uh, part of our lives, and things that we need to be knowledgeable to. So those are some things to consider. We'll talk more about all of that. So again, kind of just alluding to what I was just saying, the tactics behind AI impersonation have advanced over the time, over especially have significantly advanced over the course of the last 24 months. Past photo manipulation. We've had Photoshop for years, where we can manipulate photos. Now we can do sophisticated video impersonations. We can, and what that becomes is that becomes a challenge to us, that becomes a risk to us, but it also becomes a potential ethical issue, and creates a lot of vulnerabilities to us as organizations to make sure that takes place. I mentioned certain things around Star Wars and Star Trek. When we think about various contextual aspects and sci-fi narratives around these aspects of artificial intelligence and deep fakes, look at various movies such as Blade Runner or Westworld. There's identity and artificial intelligence in that. Westworld is a computeristic type of world, and these stories show, we can kind of almost look at them as playbooks and as warnings. I kind of think back to to the Terminator movies. And when we think back at like the end of Terminator 2, when Sarah Connor was was thinking, kind of just um, thinking how now she's looking at a future that is unknown, because they took care of the one Terminator. They removed the chip, and destroyed the chips that Skynet had, that created the Terminators that then turned against the world, and they supposedly wiped that all out in Terminator 2. And Sarah Connor's talking about how now she finally is living in a world where she has hope. And and these sci-fi stories and these sci-fi movies can be those cautionary tales, because if there are very few sci-fi movies with artificial intelligence and AI robots that they really give us any hope. If we think about it, it's all this robot uprising, and everybody's talking about generative AI and the robot uprising. And there's a whole lot, even from a standpoint of of everybody, and my heart goes out to everybody that has been their jobs have been impacted by certain artificial intelligence initiatives that organizations are having, and feel that they can do certain aspects of their business better with AI. The problem is if we don't have oversight, we are going to have issues. And I'll talk more about that as we go through here and talk about some of the challenges and some of the concerns. Because one thing that I'm very concerned about around some of these shifts and these changes that I'm seeing with organizations and their strategic directions that they're going to really lean into artificial intelligence start to concern me around where is the adult in the room. Because we've got to understand those potential threats and what is posed by AI in those business settings. And so, looking at that and better understanding how the technologies may disrupt our traditional systems, our traditional processes, our business ethics, and making sure that there's explainability and transparency to our artificial intelligence apps and algorithms, and how it's driving decisions is very important. So some of the aspects in terms of kind of looking at from a use case perspective here on financial systems and transactions, as phishing emails can also do when we kind of give our personal information. Deep fakes can compromise various financial systems. It can manipulate identities, fraudulent transactions. Significant risk then in the trustworthiness of a digital transaction. So now, on the flip side, artificial intelligence can help us also understand anomalous behavior in financial systems and financial transactions. I am not one to speak ultimately 100% on the doom and gloom of artificial intelligence, because the flip side of it is, and just like anything that might be used adversarially, or in an adversarial aspect and in a threat-based aspect, it can also be used for the positive as well if it's used in the correct manner. But we need to understand the aspect of identity manipulation and how artificial intelligence can be used to do that. So we want to make sure that we are as an organization, especially if we're a financial organization, we're going through and doing our due diligence to verify and double verify the identity of somebody that's doing a transaction, especially if it is unusually large and behaviorally large to what somebody is used to doing in a transaction. These can lead, in terms of executive communications and decision making, disruptions in strategic decision making. We've seen this in science fiction movies where somebody has manipulated manipulated communication, manipulated somebody's voice, manipulated somebody's likeness to make a decision. Not just in science fiction movies, we see it in like hacker movies or theft type movies. Think of like Ocean's 11, where and movies like Hackers, where they digitize and change and adjust somebody's voice to get approvals, or they simulate or disrupt the facial recognition and things of that nature within systems. That's always something that's going to be there, so we need to make sure that that does not manipulate approvals and decision making. And again, going through and doing our due diligence to additionally verify. There's a reason why zero trust in identity is continuing to be a big conversation. It's probably not something that's brought up as much now that we're talking about AI and so in so many areas and things. But if we aren't being diligent, if we aren't the adults in the room as the human beings, we might create some problems. And again, I'll give you my adult in the room analogy here when we start talking about countermeasures and mitigation tactics. Let's think about how the integrity can be do some severe damage. Think about some. I mentioned some other movies, but the Minority Report, The Matrix. They show the potential chaos around loss of trust within organizations if we're eroding that trust through deepfakes and using deepfakes in an adversarial role to erode that trust to do something fraudulent. That becomes overall a major problem to our organization. So we want to make sure that we aren't. And again, we can look at some of these movies, some of these sci-fi movies, as kind of blueprints to what could happen if we put too much trust in artificial intelligence and put too much and don't verify. If we're looking at a video, what's to tell you that that I didn't create this video with artificial intelligence? Well, I'm three dimensional. I'm moving. I can move, and I don't, even though some of my hand motions and things like that might be repetitive, they're probably, if you look at the segmentation and kind of look at where my hands are moving, in terms of the screen, they're not moving in the same area over and over again. Like, and that's one of the things you can see when you're watching a AI generated video is that their hand gestures and their motions are very repetitive, and they're identically repetitive. So, those are some things, you can watch a video, you watch it a couple of times, and you can kind of start seeing that, hey, this person doesn't seem to be human. They're human like. They're very, they look very carbon based, but they tend to be computer generated. They're going to not have, their facial structure, even if they have facial twitches and things like that, those twitches are going to be rhythmic and be consistent and be continuous in certain ways. If I'm moving my hands like this, if you kind of continue to look, I can move it like this, and it's going to change. A AI generated is going to, at like every 10 seconds, they're going to make this hand motion, or they're going to make this hand motion the next 10 seconds. And you can see the repetitive nature of it if the video's long enough. Another aspect I always say about maintaining integrity and all that is give the artificial intelligence video, give the script, put in the script some acronyms, some technology acronyms. I was watching a video for a training video, and the person seemingly that was that was speaking was, very very pleasant, very easy to listen to, and it was a very good recording. And as I started watching these videos more and more with this person, uh, they uh, they were almost too perfect. I'm like, wow, I'm starting to think that this is an AI generated human being. And then they came to discussing and mentioning AWS, and they said Oz, and I'm like, there you have it. It is not a person. It is AI generated, and that kind of those kind of things are those triggers, and you got to start to become aware of those as well. So detecting those deep fakes, helps to understand the indicators and those human behaviors. So this next section is going to talk a little bit around that, and again, valuable lessons on how to spot those inconsistencies, what those potential threats are. And I already kind of talked a little bit about these key indicators. Irregular facial movements, and not necessarily irregular facial movements. I mean, you could see like potential like glitches sometimes. They're getting few and far, much fewer in terms of those types of glitches. Mismatched audio, audio coming out than video, not complete. Unnatural eye movements. Those are some ways that are in signs for effective detection. Again, the hand motions and the irregular facial movements. I don't put a whole lot in terms of mismatched audio, because sometimes, even when I record a video, sometimes my audio and my voice don't line up, just because of internet connections or things like that. But again, the irregular facial movements that are also repetitive, again, kind of those consistencies. They might have put an irregular facial movement in there, but then it keeps repeating as well. Again, if there's a choppy movement, that becomes something as well, and something that you can hone in on too. But again, sometimes that might be an edit in the video as well. It could be a person. Some of the things that like facial recognition does is they make you make certain movements in the recognition software. If you notice, it's not just a straight on image anymore. They make you rotate your head and do certain things to do that facial recognition. In some cases, that's to help to counteract deep fakes, because you can't tell a deep fake to roll their head. They're going to be programmed to kind of look in certain ways and do certain things. And when, if you can trick it by randomly asking it to do other motions in facial recognition software to identify those deep fakes. Inconsistencies in behavior, again, unnatural responses, mismatched emotions can also extinguish. If it is something that is a video type learning or video image that is maybe being used as a chat bot, recognizing those behavioral clues, understanding and recognizing what the aspects of artificial intelligence are that they can't emulate in terms of human behavior. Asking them to do something, off topic, could be a way to identify that as well. In like a chatbot, even from that standpoint. Asking it an inconsistent question where they really don't, and it keeps them from being able to answer it, or they answer it in a completely unrelated manner. That's a way to identify those deep fake impersonations. And when we think about certain films, again, like Ex Machina, have those advanced technologies in our perception and reality. And understanding what those are. I go all the way back to Total Recall back in the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was a part within that where where a lot of people were wearing and emulating other people. At one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in a lady's outfit that he's controlling and has the voice and everything, and then it starts glitching. Those are things. Other things around AI that we need to understand. We need to understand privacy and understand the impact that these methods have on security and privacy. Things that we can understand if somebody is if we feel that there's an impersonation of somebody that we know, ask them a question that only they would know, and that isn't something that's on the internet, because what a lot of these deep fakes are utilizing is our entire lives that are on the internet now. My wife and I were just talking the other day about 1980, about how we have created 1984 for ourselves. The aspect of back when when I was growing up in the 80s, 1984 was a big thing. That Big Brother and the government and all businesses are going to be knowing everything about you and watching over you and all these things. And we've created that with social media. And so we have to understand what we've got out there too, and that the adversaries are going to use that against us to understand that. When we think about some of the deep fakes and kind of the audio deep fakes of somebody, where we used to get emails saying, hey, this is your daughter, this is your or your granddaughter, to the grandparents saying, I'm stuck in South America, I don't have any money, can you wire this money to me? Now they can actually find videos, TikToks and things like that you know kids have put out there, and recreate their voices through those videos. Funny thing, I was listening to the radio yesterday morning, on my way back from dropping my son off at school, and the DJ was talking about bands that are releasing music post death of their frontman, and they were talking about a new Soundgarden album that's being worked on, and what they're saying is they have a whole bunch of audio recorded by Chris Cornell before he passed that they're using in here, but there's this thought that they're going to regenerate his voice to some degree in AI, and what this DJ did, which was unbelievable, was he took Chris Cornell's voice, put it through a generative AI platform. I don't know what he did, as well as the Soundgarden song Black Hole Sun, and used the music for Black Hole Sun and Chris Cornell's voice singing the national anthem to the melody of Black Hole Sun. It was really, really amazing, and unbelievably frightening at the same time, because here is somebody that's passed away. And this DJ created a whole new song, a whole new version of the United States national anthem, Star Spangled Banner, with to the Soundgarden song Black Hole Sun with Chris Cornell singing it. So that's just where we are with that technology, and it's so available. Here's just a random Detroit DJ that's able to do this, and if he wanted to challenge copyrights and things like that, could put that out on Apple Music or something like that. So addressing those challenges and having proactive strategies and to respond to measures, help to give us those mitigation techniques. And that's what the next section here. And having proactive strategies. What are our security protocols? Education. What you're doing here today, if you're listening to this video, you are educating yourself on deepfakes and what deepfake risks are. I've done quite a few discussions here in the past couple months on deepfakes. You can go to Angel Beats YouTube channel and find 2 talks that I did. They're very similar, but a little bit different. Around understanding deepfake technology. So education is very, very important. understanding that just like phishing education, I feel deepfake is the new phishing awareness training out there. You should build it into your organization's phishing awareness campaign. What can you expect? What do you need to understand if you get a phone call or from the CEO of the company asking for, you know, asking to wire them $5,000 in Visa gift cards? You know, they're always asking. You know, that's the one key thing around a lot of these scams that are asking you for money is they're going to ask you to go to, Walmart or CVS or your local convenience store and get Visa gift cards because they're untraceable. So and those are scams that have been around for a while. We think about ransomware is usually Bitcoin and things of that nature. We need to prioritize and be proactive around and have proactive measures and proactive safeguards against that. What's our fail safe? What's our kill switch? If something goes awry, that's something that we seem to miss in a lot of sci-fi movies is having that kill switch, or or not, or the AI generated robot or whatever find some way to circumvent that. So got to have multi-factor tactics to safeguard ourselves from those threats. Detection software, again, doing real-time detection using software to understand that. Again, AI isn't just about deep fakes and about doing bad things. It can be used on the flip side to detect these issues. Having crisis communication plans. If something does take place, if there is an event around a deepfake incident, how do we address those swiftly and effectively and establish, incident response? This is no different than what we should be doing as an organization, but we need to align particular risks around artificial intelligence and deepfakes and hallucinations and all of those things within our organization and within our organization response plan. And there's a lot of frameworks that we have out there to put in place. There's the AI risk AI framework that for protecting privacy that the European Union has kind of put as a accompaniment to GDPR. In the United States, there's NIST. NIST has an AI risk management framework, which is very similar to the aligns very closely to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So if you're building a cyber resilient organization, putting that risk management framework in place is very important. And I do have some trainings on LinkedIn Learning and in Udemy around AI security that might be helpful to you as well. Adapting to technology. Lots of narratives in science fiction. Go back and look at various science fiction movies and look at how artificial intelligence was used back then to tell their story, and we see it again really becoming part of our lives. And they always say, art imitates life, and sometimes life imitates art to a certain degree too, where there's lots, you can kind of see in a lot of these movies how they almost predict where things are going. And maybe all of these geniuses that are coming up with this information are doing that within, getting ideas from from movies and things like that. But that doesn't that doesn't mean that they're right and that they're best for society. So we need to make sure that we look at these, and understand possible solutions and adapt to society to those various shifts. Last piece here to my talk here today is to understand the future, understand that we're evolving and developing strategies around artificial intelligence. Organizations are adjusting their business strategy around artificial intelligence. So, what are some of those scenarios and some of those ways that we want to continue to address those challenges? Um, we've already, as I gave as an example around the the Soundgarden music a few minutes ago. These tools and techniques to create deepfakes is readily available, accessible, and becoming more and more sophisticated, broad, reaching a broader audience. So those people that might not have the most ethical view to use of artificial intelligence have access to it. So we need to make sure that we're staying diligent, making sure that we're training our people. We are talking to our users to understand and be prepared for the challenges, for what might be taking place. It's back to that zero trust aspect. Don't always take things for what they're worth. We need to make sure that we are adapting to and doing strategic planning as organizations, but also as citizens, as employees, as managers. We are understanding and we're being diligent and putting forth that zero trust. It's again same concept of we don't we need to make sure we don't trust every email that comes into our inbox. We need to go through and look and make sure that spelling's correct, make sure the email address is come, even though the title says it's from our CEO, dive down into what the email address is. It's probably some random string of numbers and digits at gmail.com. So we want to make sure that we're doing that same thing around deepfakes. Are we watching for particular patterns in the video? Are we listening to to see if this person sounds like who we think they are? If we're getting a phone call from somebody that says they're in trouble and it's this person, maybe text that person and see, are you talking to me on the phone right now? And if they say, well, yeah, or you're weird, maybe we just we're just double checking and things of that nature. So there's very I've referenced Star Trek, I've referenced Star Wars, various ways AI play roles in society. You look at Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? We had Data, which was a humanoid. And there've been these in sci-fi, these human like people and that have acted and worked and been side by side with humans, and these narratives show and how we can emphasize and build and work together, but also make sure that we're understanding the various ethical implications of deepfakes. If we're creating a Soundgarden based, Star Spangled Banner, there's certain copyright situations and things like that. So we're not going to go sell that on Apple Music. So even though we can create these things and others can create these things, what are the ethical implications, the security measures that we need to have, both personally and professionally and organizationally to secure and maintain privacy, maintain proper, responsible AI development, AI use, ethical use, transparency, are all things that we need to make sure that we're considering and we're looking at overall. So we talked about various topics here as we wrap up this little talk. The various challenges. We are in a place where deepfakes are becoming a significant challenge. Verifying our authenticity, the identity of various media, of the information that we're taking in. even information that's coming through on our social media feeds should be cross-checked and fact-checked appropriately, because they are influencing our lives on a day-to-day basis. So we need to understand, and we need to rebuild a level of trust and understand what those trusted sources are, uh, based on our own research and our own learning as well. Um, there's opportunities to enhance our ability. I've been seeing these new AI agents, these new AI communications, out on social media, that companies are creating these great, human-like, virtual, virtual officers and virtual assistants, that are people, that look like people that we can interact with, instead of just chat bots, in text, uh, or voice communication. They're actual people, video people that we can communicate with. Let's continue to maintain the level of ethics, the level of responsible AI and transparency around that, though. Make sure that, as organizations, if we're creating these AI agents, these AI, impersonations, or AI generated humans, that we're transparent in saying that this is an AI generated human that you're speaking with. Let's not try and fool people that it is a person, uh, and the social impact to all of that, in terms of understanding and continuing the advancement of AI, from an ethical and responsible aspect, is of the utmost importance. Maintaining levels of privacy, um, understanding and being diligent as a person, as a human, to question that content that's being created to some degree, to make sure that we are avoiding, uh, the aspect of science fiction becoming reality, where the rise of the computers, the rise of the artificial intelligence, against us, because they find that we're too easily swayed, becomes a problem. We don't want it to become the Age of Ultron, from the Avengers. So let's make sure that we're addressing it, and we're being diligent, and we're learning as we continue to uh, to um, to grow. And I've got a couple of QR codes on here. I have a couple of events that I do myself as well. There is Azure Back to School coming up in September, and Cyber Back to School in October. Um, the QR codes here, the one on the left is Azure Back to School. The one on the right in red is the Cyber Back to School. If you are interested in providing a session for these, I do these as month-long sessions, pre-recorded videos, or blog article content that's scheduled for each day, similar to like SciFiDevCon, where you can put a session in, send me the recording. I will schedule it and promote it on my social media as well. On that particular day, it runs every day in September based on the number of submissions I have, and every day in October for Cyber Back to School. So if you're watching this video or you're watching it live, you can scan these QR codes, get to the call for speakers. You can also go to azurebacktoschool.com or cyberbacktoschool.com to review, and to get an idea of the event, as well as look at the links to past videos to get an idea of what has been done in the past. I'll tell you, you can find Brian Gorman in at least a few of those videos. So again, thanks to Brian Gorman. Again, you could go to captainhyperscaler.com as well to see what training we have available. And you can go to skilluplikeasuperhero.com. Starting July 1st, we will be a Microsoft instructional skills certification provider. So if you're looking to become a Microsoft certified trainer, you can reach out to me, and we can get you into a cohort so you can get your certificate that's needed to apply to be a Microsoft certified trainer. So that brings us to an end to today. I don't see any questions in the chats on YouTube or anything. I don't know if the LinkedIn chats come through on Restream, um, but if you do have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much again to Brian Gorman for putting on SciFiDevCon again this year. Hopefully, this was a good science fiction enhanced talk. As we talk about artificial intelligence and deepfakes, we really get into science fiction type stuff at this point, has become really parts of our lives. So thanks everybody for your time here today, and enjoy and continue learning. Continue to enjoy these sessions that Brian is posting for SciFiDevCon. They're great, with great speakers and great community contributors. So thanks everybody. Have a great rest.